Hello and welcome back to a New Pace podcast. So I'm your host Leslie Andrew, and today I'm with Jan Ockendon, who is a psychotherapist and coach, pattern breaker, who works with women to help them to navigate challenges in their life. So it's great to see you, Jan, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here. It's a very cold day here in Leeds, so I'm all wrapped up in my room.
I am as well. I'm sat under a blanket. So, and yeah, having a bit, yeah. So, so, you know, we've met a few times and we have these different conversations at various networking events and everything. And it's always been an absolute pleasure to see where our work overlaps and see there's lots of overlap, and it feels like when you're talking to another psychotherapist, there's almost like a different knowing, different language and things like that. So would you be able to share with people here, everyone that's listening, appreciate you listening, what it is that you do and how you help people?
Yeah, okay. So yes, I am a psychotherapist. My training is psychodynamic psychotherapy, but I don't always necessarily work that way. I am also a mental health nurse, so I bring a lot of that in as well. There's a lot of I've been working for 3 decades in the mental wellbeing industry. And so I bring in a lot of my mental health nursing. I'm also an NLP coach. And I've also done some other life coach training. So I've got lots of things that I bring. And I realised not very long ago, really, that actually the most of the women that I see tend to see mostly women. And actually I tend to see mostly women with ADHD as well.
Yeah.
They're drawn to me somehow. One of my clients did point out my doom piles behind me here and said, I wonder why people with ADHD are drawn to you then, Jan. But I tend to use, most of the women that I see, I recognised were repeating patterns that weren't theirs, that were generational patterns that had come from any kind of trauma. And when I talk about trauma, I'm not meaning like the PTSD sort of, the traumas that people think that are massive traumas. I'm talking about small things, the way that people are spoken to when they're at home or when they're young by whoever's around them, not just parents but friends, other people that they come across in their lives as well. All those little kind of throwaway remarks that actually can be quite hurtful and gather in people's minds, but also those kind of patterns that we've grown up with. So like work patterns, relationship patterns that we've grown up with, that we've seen other people playing out in their lives when we've been growing up, or work patterns that we've picked up as we've been working, work relationships and things like that. And I help women to break that, because I think a lot of the women that come to see me, they've recognised that this is what's happening. They're not happy, and they're feeling as if they can't make relationships that are fulfilling. They're not fulfilled with the relationships with their families, and their relationship with themselves is completely broken down as well because of it. And they don't want that to carry on. So the pattern breaker bit really comes from being able to say, well, okay, how can we make that relationship with yourself more comfortable, better for you, but also so that your children don't pick it up, or your family don't repeat the same patterns. So yeah, that's what I do, and that's kind of really evolved over the last few years, because I started off thinking I was going to work mostly in mindset. Coming from a mental health background, that's what you do, isn't it? You work with people's minds. But actually, a lot of the time nowadays, I'm saying to people, no, where do you feel that in your body?
Yeah.
So it's moving a lot more into the kind of somatic stuff. And so where do you feel that in your body? What can you do to help that move? Because it gets stuck sometimes.
Yeah.
To help that shift. So I am talking a lot more about movement, breathing, a lot more kind of somatic type stuff with women as well, to help them shift, because we hold a lot, I think, as women. We hold a lot for everybody, just naturally, because that's how we've evolved in terms of generational traumas and patterns, and a lot of that is held in our body.
Yeah, of course. And there's so much, isn't there? Like so many sort of narratives about mental health, like whether someone's internalizing an emotional struggle rather than thinking, well, those things that happened to me and how these patterns of behaviours and patterns of certain values that have been handed down to me generationally, these have kind of given me a belief about myself that's not very empowering, and that can actually be really misunderstood. People can really feel a lot of shame from that. So it feels good to hear that sort of that change of narrative, because I think sometimes
Yeah,
we can get caught up in our own systems, can't we?
we
So
can. Yeah.
yeah. So how did you decide that that was the way that you were gonna sort of work, do you think?
I think it's come from years and years of seeing how the last ward that I worked on was an all female ward, and there's one person that particularly stands out, and I won't go into details obviously for confidentiality reasons.
Yeah.
But when I looked back on the way that particular woman was treated, was talked about, was actually really desperate herself as well to get some closure, or some. I mean, she might have talked about it in terms of fixing, and I don't think people need fixing. People don't. People are not broken. They
Yeah.
don't need us to fix them. They just need something unlocking. It's a bit like unlocking a door in your mind, like a secret door in your mind, really. But antibody. But when I look back, when I started to look back and started to think about it, when I did my therapy training, and then a few years afterwards working in the NHS, because I didn't leave the NHS until December last year, I realised that particularly this woman, she really stood out for me. That actually, if I'd have known now what I know now, I probably would have waded in and said to people, "No, I think we need to do something completely different for this woman, because this
Yeah.
is not what's been said, what's been the way we're treating her could be completely different, and actually that could help her a lot more." I
Yeah.
think that, the big thing was it was a life change, so it was she was kind of a woman in her 50s, so it was probably menopause, and yeah, when I look back now, that's what stood out in my head, and that's what made me think. But actually, it's not just women in the 50s that this happens to. I see this happen when women become mothers, when even in teenage years, this happens to girls and women, and then at particular life changes, I see that kind of shrinkage and other people's words in their ears that are really quite potent, for
Yeah.
want of a better word.
Yeah, because developmentally, we often talk about child development of, you know,
Yeah,
up to ages, but we don't necessarily talk about sort of adult development and beyond all that. And those natural shifts bring so
yeah,
much pressure and so much stuff sort of with
absolutely.
that.
Yeah,
And as you were speaking, I was thinking about sort of the similarities between what you were saying and the whole approach of this podcast of stepping into a new pace, and how yeah, we can say that it's, when you get to midlife you've got all of this, but it happens with so many different things, doesn't it? And
yeah,
time to reset and change things. And it sounded, I could imagine you sort of, I could visualize you in a meeting maybe just thinking, oh, I feel really I'm not sure how I can help this lady, and then looking back and thinking, oh, I wish I'd have been able to do that. So it feels like a really strong sort of powerful why, and like about where you're up to now to maybe break those patterns of someone automatically being given a mental health diagnosis when actually that it's not relevant for them. Is that what you were thinking?
yeah. It is, I think, and the way, there's certain mental health diagnoses that make my blood boil.
Yes.
The way that they used that something came up for me on a television program last week. Actually, it's a program called Ambulance on um, the BBC, and watching that, and there was somebody on there with a mental health diagnosis. That my husband looked at me and he said, "What's the matter?" And I was sat with my hands over my face, going, "Oh no!" because I could see exactly what was happening with this person. And having heard that diagnosis so many times when I was working in the NHS, and the specific criteria that's attached to that particular diagnosis was, you could see it in the women that were diagnosed. But actually, when you look back, what was happening to them, it wasn't that there was something wrong, or that something had snapped in them, or that they were doing something that was a defect or a personality defect or something like that. Actually, it's come from trauma.
Yeah.
It's always trauma related underneath. You can, when you looked back through people's history, you could see that perfectly well.
Yeah.
And I'd love to be able to go back and stand there and say, what are you doing? Why are we doing this? So yeah.
Yeah.
When
Because
things like that come up, it's really, it does feel really powerful, and something inside me goes, oh no.
Yeah, because I used to sort of think about, having that awareness doesn't necessarily mean that you can act on it, or that
No.
maybe what you're saying might be heard.
Yeah.
And I often sort of reflect on sort of my time, like in different systems, and thinking, actually, maybe I was quite like in the system as well, and being a bit pathologized and being a bit
Yeah.
entrenched in it all. And
Yeah.
it's only when we really step out from and sit on the bank of the water that we see the ripples, and that we
Yeah.
see those things. Whereas when you're in the middle of it, you might not see the wood for the trees, so to
No,
speak.
exactly.
So, but yeah, I agree with you on that. Those sort of things of going, rather than asking what's wrong with that person, it's like, well, what happened to
What
them?
happened? Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And that sounds like a really simple difference, doesn't it? But it's actually massive. The feedback that I get from clients who come into my room, I've had feedback from several clients now who've said that they've walked into my room and just breathed. And when they've spoken to me, it's like they've been heard for the first time. And
yeah,
that's actually really sad. And I'm not blaming anybody, and I'm not, I wouldn't go back and say to colleagues, it's all your fault, because it isn't. It's an entrenched thing that, again, that's a pattern that
yeah,
people have picked up from years and years of working where they do. So it's not, I guess what I'm saying is, and what I'm coming to think quite a lot, is that I can do what I do and I can help individuals, but actually, until there's a system shift, a complete system shift, I'm fighting a corner, if that makes sense.
yeah. And I mean, one of the things I always say to other people, but then maybe not pay attention to myself, is about, really focusing what you can change
Yeah,
rather than
exactly.
what you can't change. And
Yeah,
it's easy to sort of go, oh, I need to be doing this, 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 and this.
yeah,
But
exactly.
then, hang on, one step at a time.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
absolutely, yeah, yeah. And I feel as if that's what I'm doing, really.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're working with like people that come to you, how would somebody what would someone's experience of working with you be like? I suppose. And I imagine everyone would have a different experience because they're all different,
Yeah, absolutely.
generally speaking.
Yeah. Yeah, so everybody, you're right, everybody would have a different experience, because what I would say to people is that, I mean, I work my qualification, my core qualification is psychodynamic. And so you work with what somebody brings, basically, you know. Um, I think probably the first thing that people would experience is coming into this room, and I designed this room. This is so you will get a lot of me in here. So there's a lot of calmness. There's a lot of spirituality. So
Yeah,
people will come and sort of sit with me in this room and get that kind of really calm feeling. And the first thing I do really is just ask people to tell me about themselves, or tell us both. Maybe that was a
yeah,
Freudian slip. Maybe it is about telling us both about yourself, and just get them to sort of think about what's happening for them. I can be challenging. So there's times when, I've got life coach training as well, and the sort of NLP training, I can be nurturing and therapy type, but then I can ask quite pointed coaching questions if I feel as if somebody's maybe a little bit stuck, but it's always done with a lot of love. And I never do that unless I think somebody can take it, because it can be
Yeah.
quite challenging. Um, so yeah, I'd like to think it's really nurturing, but actually also transformational, just because I can bring those other things in as well and challenge people's the way they talk about themselves for a start off. But I also bring in a little bit of energy work. So I've got certification in EFT, and I've got some Reiki training, so I can bring all sorts of bits and pieces in as well. So you won't get an experience like any other therapist from me,
Yeah.
I suppose. Yeah, it's really
This,
individual.
yeah. This is the thing, isn't it? That actually, um, conversations that come up, especially say in the online world and being around coaches and, different models of working, and you know, it was something that you said about, oh, I'd ask a question like that was more challenging, that might be a bit more like coaching, and like, so do you see, oh, I might be more nurturing like a therapist. Do you see that things, I don't know, like, because to me it's all you, it's just
Yeah,
all
it is.
you,
Yeah.
but does it feel important sort of to be thinking, oh, I'm going to put my coaching hat on, or I'm going to be doing this, or is it more about explaining it?
Yeah, I think it's more about explaining it, and I always make sure that I do explain that at the beginning, that what you'll get from me is not what you'll get from, a counsellor or therapist who hasn't had that other experience, because um, while I can work specifically in the therapy, I don't, because I think it's more powerful to bring everything else and to bring more of me.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? How all these different ways of working. So you're talking about psychodynamic, and the way I think about psychodynamic approaches is about me representing something for them within
Yeah,
the space and within their life. And
absolutely. Yeah,
so there may be times when I'm like representing, oh, I'm feeling it myself, feeling very maternal
yeah,
towards this person,
yeah,
or it might be that I feel like a sibling, or it might be that the teacher, or like in that sort of transference, in that relationship, that it's just a made up thing, but this is how our brain sort of works. But versus something that is more sort of psychoanalytical, that's much more, I'm just going to be like really plain and not give anything away. And some of my training was about kind of, oh, I need to be really distant from this, whereas actually identifying that and naming that and going, oh, I feel like I want to give you a hug, or I feel like really nurturing towards you right now. And you, it's you making a decision about what you share with people and what you might not.
yeah.
But I just, as you were speaking, I just thought I'd riff along really.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, psychodynamic training comes from psychoanalytic anyway. So, the because I had 6 years of therapy when I trained, and the person that I saw was an analyst. He was a psychoanalyst. Um, so the way I was taught was very psychoanalytic. And it often felt quite cold to
Yeah,
me. Um, and you're right. You do think about, well, who do I represent for this client at the moment? And during my training, I was probably taught, you don't say that to them. And I might not always say that to them, but if there's something coming up, I might ask a question that would bring that out of the client.
yes,
So it wouldn't necessarily be me saying, "Oh, I feel like I want to nurture you and mother you," and or anything sort of that specific. But I might say, I wonder what you're feeling," or I might ask them about their mum, or what does it feel
yeah,
like when your mum says something like that, or that kind of thing. So
yeah,
I might do. But the other thing about the way I work, because obviously I am quite spiritual, and that will come into it. And I've always done this, and I've never recognised it until fairly recently. I sometimes think in songs. So if a client, I can be sat in a room with a client and a song will just come into my head.
Ooh.
And
Oh, I like that.
I remember actually when I was training, the same thing happened because we had group supervision. We had clinical seminars and things where one of us might present a client and everybody else would help them think about what was going on with that client. And that the songs used to come up there for me as well. So it's, yeah, and often when I start to think about it I might mention it to the client and say, "Oh, does this particular song mean anything to you?"
Yeah, can you think of an example? Can you give me an example of a song sort of thing that's...
What can I think? I'm just trying to think if there was one specific. One of the ones that's come up quite specifically for a client. Was it an REM song, I think, and I can't think which one it was. It might have been Losing My Religion, so it might have been. It was a client, I think, that was stuck somewhere between being brought up religious and not really wanting to be. And
Yeah,
Losing My Religion was really kind of singing in my ear really loud.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's like it's confirming that, like making that clear. And I had the song "I Can See Clearly Now" as you were sort of mentioning things, and it is that
Yeah.
things will come up, won't they?
Yeah.
And they may be
Yeah.
relevant, or they might not be relevant, or it may be blatantly obvious to somebody because that's the conversation, or it may be that's they've not got to that part in the conversation yet.
Yes. Yeah, so sometimes it is about just holding on to that and thinking, well, what does that stop? Because sometimes it's songs that mean something to me rather than them, and it might be that there's something about the lyrics and the meaning of the song that actually mean that the client's bringing up. I just remember, and this might illustrate it a little bit. One of the clinical seminars we went at that I attended, the leader was a guy who was a psychiatrist in psychotherapy in Leeds. And I remember the thing, it sticks out to me and it will always stick out to me this. And he said that psychotherapy is more about an unconscious to unconscious conversation. So your unconscious talking to the client's unconscious and vice versa, or the client's
Yeah,
unconscious talking to you usually more, to your unconscious more. So it's about using everything within you to be able to sort out, is this coming from me or is this coming from the client? And if it's if you're hearing something, what does that say about where does that come from with the client? Where does that fit? And it might actually be, like you say, something that comes up later, or sometimes it's just really obvious. And then
yeah,
other times you have to think a little bit harder,
yeah. Or feel a bit harder.
feel a bit harder, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, are you working on a particular thing at the moment? Do you have like projects that you're working on? Thing? I know that there was one with the sort of the medical stuff that you've
Yeah,
talked about.
yeah. So there's a couple. I've got a 6-month coaching program at the moment, which is a one-to-one. It's not a group program. It's a
Yeah,
one-to-one, and that is twice weekly coaching with me. Which, I mean, I call it coaching, but there'll always be that therapeutic edge to it because obviously that's where my background is. And that is specifically, there's a training portal that comes with that has specific trainings in that were related to sort of traumatic pattern breaking. So what you need to be able to do that, things like the nervous system stuff, emotional. I don't like the word regulation, but emotional resilience and being able to manage your emotions and things like that. Also, I do a lot about menstrual cycles
yeah,
because I work a lot with women, and our menstrual cycles come into that, and not just menstrual cycles, our energy cycles, because they carry on once you've gone through menopause anyway. So that's one thing that I'm doing at the moment. But then the other thing, which is what you just mentioned,
yeah,
I realised there were a few women that I saw that really struggled to go to see the GP. And part of that was because historically they'd not been heard. So they'd gone to see the GP about something and they'd always felt fobbed off. So you'd never, to give them the due, I worked with GPs for years, so to give them the due, they only have 10-minute appointments.
Yeah.
So they don't have a long time to be able to sort out with you what is going on. So it's a 3-session thing to help women get really clear about what they want to say, have an idea in their head what they want to get out of an appointment, and to get in their heads really, what's the top thing, what's the absolute best thing that could happen in this appointment, what's a good thing, and then what will you tolerate, so what's okay, and then sort of a final appointment, so the third appointment really, just to kind of pick that through and say, okay, so did you get what you wanted, and if not, what would you do differently next time? So it's helping women get, well, people actually, it could be men as well, but people get really clear about what they actually want and how to say that, how to put that across.
Yeah, because that feels really important, having sort of, just thinking about my own experiences at the doctor's, and how, like, you might, sometimes people go with one thing, but then when you get there, you end up talking about the other thing, but really it's hard to get to the core. So my guess is that the benefits from that would go beyond that experience at the doctor's.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It could be, And I've said this to a lot of women that actually that might be, or people, it might be really useful if you've got kids at school to talk to your teachers about the way that you're feeling about your kids' progress at school, or it could be going to see your boss about promotion or wage increase or something. It's just about communication really, and being clear about the communication that you're bringing to the whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah, that's good, because there was somebody that I was working with that had the same dilemma, and I'd mentioned you to her. So it's so important, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And it grew from, there was one specific client that it grew from actually, who had been to see the doctor a few times, and oh gosh, somebody knocking at the door, but I'll ignore them. That had been, she'd been to the doctors a few times, and actually when we started to talk about it, when we started to think about what was happening for her, it was quite clear it was menopause.
Yeah.
And the doctor just wasn't picking that up. And they weren't able to say that. They didn't feel able to kind of say that to the doctor as well. So when we had sessions, we were able to kind of think about that together. And then the client was able to go off and say to the doctor, this is what I think's happening, in a way that make the doctor feel as if they were being told what the job was.
Yeah.
Which I think is really important, because I don't like being told what my job is, so I don't suppose anybody else does.
Yeah. It makes me think about the importance of doing our own research, and, like this kind of idea of like, don't go down to sort of Dr. Google, because you get all sorts of things on the internet that might not be true. However, actually, knowledge is power.
Yeah.
Oh.
Shut the door.
We've got a little woofie.
Yeah, he's rather a large woofie.
Oh, what dog do you have?
He's a Spanish rescue, so he's part beagle, part shepherd. But when I say shepherd, he looks like a Labrador. Everybody thinks he's a Labrador, but we've got pictures of his dad and we think he's a Basque shepherd, so he's quite big.
Yeah. Oh, lovely. So just in being a psychotherapist, being a coach, all of these sorts of things takes a lot out of us, doesn't it, sometimes? So how do you sort of manage your own energy levels, and what does self-care mean to you, sort of thing?
The biggest things that I do are things like, so I do a lot of EFT. I tend to do at least one tapping session a day, sometimes twice a day. I walk the dog a lot in the woods. So we're really lucky, we live right next to a massive woodland area, so we can go out and walk with the dog.
Lovely.
So I do that a lot. I'm also an ambassador with Tropic Skincare, so I make sure that the first thing I do in the morning is wash my face, clean my face properly, and put lovely smelling skincare on, and that's the last thing I do before I get into bed as well. Make sure that I do that too. And well, there's lots of other things. Lots of things like keeping in touch with friends. And if I feel rubbish, I'll message friends. But the biggest thing for me is that I no longer feel guilty about saying, right, I'm not feeling it today, I'm just going to sit down for an hour and watch
Yeah.
YouTube. um, and then come back to it, because actually I know that I'm more productive if I do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So you been feeling sort of able to make those choices for yourself and
Yeah,
prioritize yourself, which feels like, that's the sort of thing that you're doing to help other people to do as well. So
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I worked with a coach that one of her big things is talking about pleasure first. So making sure that you do something pleasurable before you do the rest of it. Like we
Yeah.
get taught you need to eat that frog, and so you have to do the worst thing first. Her
Yes.
ethos is exactly the opposite, and I've started to do that, and actually that works much better for me than doing the worst thing first.
Yeah. No, like when you said that, I was thinking this eat the frog principle, and so
Yeah,
it just gave me this sense of relief to feel that you won that because yeah. So this idea of sort of eating the frog, it's designed, isn't it, to do the hardest thing first in the morning, and then um and then the rest of the day happens as it happens. So what are the challenges with that? Why is it such a problem?
for me, because I know that I will put it off and put it off, so I'll end up down a scroll hole,
Yeah.
and just not doing anything, and then I'll end up beating myself up at night. So I know that that happens with me.
Yeah.
And I also know from clients that it happens with them as well. Whereas if I know that if I do something pleasurable first and then have something pleasurable to do afterwards, then I'll do the thing because it won't feel so bad.
Yeah. No,
It
I'm
just
with
doesn't
you on.
feel so bad.
Yeah, and you said about how a lot of people that you help may have ADHD and may kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
struggle with some of those stuff. So actually, instead of in all, ideally, you get up, you go and put the bins out, or you do the hard thing, and then the rest of the day is yours. But instead, that pattern of going, I don't want to do the hard thing, I'm just going to sit here, I'm not going to move and do anything. And then 3 hours later, I've done the hard thing. Had I been allowed to eat cake instead of eat the frog,
Yeah,
I might
exactly.
be more
Yeah,
productive.
yeah. And that pleasurable thing doesn't have to be anything big. It could just be having a nice coffee out your coffee machine, or talking to a friend, or watching a 5 minute video on YouTube.
Yeah.
Cat videos. That's my thing. Always the funny cat videos or the funny dog videos.
Oh, there's some
And
funny ones.
yeah, there are. And just, having a laugh before you do it. And then also saying, well, okay, I'm going to do this. And I know that it's going to take it out of me because I know that it's something really difficult. This morning I've been doing some papers for the solicitor that my mum passed away last year, and there's all that stuff going on. So I've got some forms to fill in. But before I did that, I went out with a dog. And I
Yeah.
looked at the holly berries and watched the birds and fed the crows and all that sort of stuff
Yeah.
first before I did that.
Yeah.
And then I came back and I thought, right, I've got that to do. I'll do it.
Yeah.
And I did it.
Yeah. And that feels like there's a self-compassion there.
Yeah.
Because it's, sorry for your loss, first of all, but then, are you knowing yourself enough to sort of go, this is going to take something from me. I need to fill my cup first before
Yeah.
I can step in and do this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I always say to people about this as well that, because I work quite a lot with energy and environment and people, and when I'm talking to, I have quite a lot of women who come to see me whose families, they feel really difficult, they struggle with the relationship with the family. So I always suggest to them, so what can you do before you go and see them? Because obviously you don't want to cut your family off. And I'm not sure that we should cut our families off necessarily. I hate that word should, but I'm not sure that
Yeah.
most people want to if they're really honest, because they're the family, and actually maybe something else will work better. So what can you do first? What can you do before you go and see that person to build up your energy, knowing that they zap it when you get there? And then what can you do when you leave? Instead of going straight home and sitting in a puddle of this, can you go and get yourself a nice coffee, or can you go and go to your favourite coffee shop, or can you go to I don't know, Pizza Express even, or somewhere nice, or can you go and visit a friend and sit there for a bit, or your favourite
Yeah.
bench in the park?
Yes, it's just and planning something that's going to be for you,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
for
Yeah,
yeah,
a
to
pleasure
really
sandwich instead of a poo sandwich.
yeah, well, yeah, and or even because as you were saying that, I was thinking about the extremes of, and for somebody like that's feeling really drained from something, and linking back to what you said about those not necessarily always a massive trauma or something that's happened that you would maybe need to report, or that you would kind of really identify as I don't like the term big T and little t for that reason, but what people might call big T
Yeah,
compared to
yeah,
little t. And relationships can be like that as well, that you can
absolutely.
feel a sense of being drained by them, compared to actually what can I do with my energy so that I'm not allowing myself to feel drained. Because actually, yeah, it's that balance, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And it's recognising that balance isn't always 50-50. Sometimes it's 70-30 or sixty
Yeah,
forty. And that, sometimes we are going to feel awful when we come away.
yeah,
And that's okay. Even if you went in having done something that was the most amazing thing in the world, sometimes you're still going to feel drained at the end of it. So it's having that compassion to be able to do something that makes you feel better when you've done it. Or even
yeah,
just allow yourself. Sometimes it's okay to sit in a puddle of sorrow or, you know, self pity for a bit.
yeah,
We always say, don't we? Don't feel self pity. Why would you feel like that? It's a valid feeling.
yeah,
You've been somewhere that you hate, and you've been
yeah,
with people that make you feel or can leave you feeling really drained. Then sometimes it's a valid feeling. We need
yeah,
to just acknowledge that, and then plan on doing something that actually makes you feel better afterwards.
yeah. So that idea of having a sense of acceptance at the same
Yeah,
time as change, that's something that I feel like really is really important. So being able to go, well, actually, I'm feeling these feelings because of that. I can allow myself to feel those feelings, and then actually, what can I do to feel different, or to
yeah,
feel more empowered beliefs or more empowered feelings, and just making sense of I feel like this, and it makes sense that I feel like this because of that,
yeah,
rather than feeling bad for feeling bad.
yeah.
If
Exactly.
you maybe see a
Yeah,
lot of people feeling like that.
yeah, exactly. And that's what we're taught to do, isn't it? We're taught to feel bad for feeling bad. We shouldn't feel like that because you've only been to see your family.
Yeah,
Why should you feel like that? But actually, sometimes it's genuinely okay to feel like that, and it's understandable why people might feel like that.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. So if I, you beyond your sort of professional stance, your professional roles, if I were just to meet you like in, you know, non-business attire, who are you behind the scenes? How would you describe yourself?
oh God.
Who's Jan really?
Um, I think I'm probably. So at one point, I would have said, "Oh, I am what you see," but I know full well that that's not necessarily true. So I'm a mum. I've got 4 kids. We've only got one at home at the moment. He's a teenager, and I am probably the epitome of the mad cat lady.
Oh,
Um, we've got 4 cats at the moment, and I love. I'm that person who, if you were walking a dog and you met me in the woods, the dog would always come to me. I'm
yeah.
that person who kind of draws animals towards me, and sometimes small
Oh,
children as well.
it's like Doctor Dolittle sort of thing. Talk to the animals.
Yes, yeah. A friend of mine was laughing a couple of weeks ago because we went for a walk, and there was a calf in a field, and the
Oh,
calf immediately came up because I went over to the fence and it came over to me and it was like rubbing all round me and putting its nose in my hand. So yeah, I am that person. I will always
Oh,
stop if there's animals in the field and go and stroke the horses. And I can be found sniffing horses occasionally because I absolutely love the smell of a horse, which might sound a bit weird, but I worked with horses before when I left school, so
did you?
that was my first job.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's cool.
yes, always loved animals.
Yeah. And is there anything, like, just thinking about sort of the things that you're sort of looking forward to at the moment, what would you say is on your radar?
What am I looking forward to? There's lots of things that I'm looking forward to. Um, I've got a few events coming up that other people's events, not mine, that
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to. So we're meeting in person on Friday, which
Yeah.
is quite exciting. Um, what else am I looking for? It's my husband's 60th actually in January,
Oh,
so non-business related. So I'm
yeah.
quite excited about that and what we're going to do for him. Um, really, I'm just the things that I'm excited about are things like I've got a couple of speaking gigs coming up, and I really like. I mean, I love talking, as you probably already gathered. Especially when it's talking about what helps people and
Yeah.
um, how things can be made better.
Yeah. What you're so passionate about that, and it really shows, doesn't it? I think
Yeah,
it'd be important to say more about that in
absolutely.
those spaces. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm looking forward to that, and just building up my business. Really, I'm quite excited about that because I think I've had a year where I'm building me up, and now I think it's time to build the business up. So
Yeah. Yeah. That feels like really strong to say that. Just like you know that you sort of filled your cup up and it's giving back sort of thing.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think you need to do that really.
Oh,
Not that I've
completely.
been doing nothing for over the year, but I think it's time now.
There's a difference, isn't there? Like I think sometimes things can feel like I experience this a lot myself. It can feel like quite slow, and then something kind of really clicks, and you're like, oh, I'm back excited about this again. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's like, oh, your program sounds really good.
yeah.
So
Yes,
I
I'm
just,
excited to
oh
get
no,
people into that.
pardon.
I'm excited to get people into that.
Yeah, that'd be good. So just thinking about these words that I always talk about, and and I think the whole idea of that is that having that balance of acceptance and change, and having that balance, it's not just art therapy, but there's so many different things that people can do to improve their lives. And so out of that, like the PACE word, pause, act, create, empower, is there anything that you could share that maybe resonates with you that fits with, could be all of it just as a whole, or one of those words that really stand out?
I think the thing that hit me when you just said it then, and it's not hit me before, but one of the things that you said that hit me when you were talking then was pause, because I don't think that as a society that we do that. I think we're taught not to pause and not to
Mm,
stop, not to rest, not to sit still, and I can remember the word lazy being used towards me lots of times when I was young. And actually, that's one of the things that I've been working on this year, being able to pause and not to be busy all the time, and actually to sit in stillness and silence. It's one of the things that I will suggest a lot to clients that unless you sit in stillness and silence, how do you know what else is there? You
yeah,
can't hear yourself. Um, and also, I think I've got a friend who her voice has just come into my head saying pause and receive. Because actually, sometimes when you allow yourself to pause, it's the time when you receive the most things. It might be that it's stillness. It might be that, particularly those of us in business, that's when things happen. When we get ideas, when the creativity flows, when things come to us um, without us having to push and force it. I think we're taught to push and force, but actually
yeah,
pausing and being still can be much more productive.
yeah. I love that sort of that way of thinking about it, that it's about receiving rather than a lot of people talk about pausing being about resting.
Yeah,
Whereas, like, you're making space for more things to come, or more ideas to come, more resilience to come, more like self love to come, whatever it
yeah,
is.
yeah.
Or even literally, I just need to pause and fasten my shoelaces.
Yeah,
Something
exactly.
there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Right, well, it's been lovely to talk with you. And yeah, I'm just sort of thinking, like, where would people find you if they wanted to ask a question, make an inquiry, see more of your content, and where's the best sort of options for people?
The best options probably are Instagram and Facebook. I do have a
Yeah.
TikTok as well, but I don't do a lot of sort of business related stuff on TikTok. But well, certainly not the coaching and therapy business. It's some tropic. It's not tropic on there.
Okay.
But yeah, Instagram and
Yeah.
Facebook, definitely.
Yeah. So we'll put those links in the description once this is out, and I'm sure, Jan, I'm sure you'll be open to people asking any questions or anything like that if they've got, even talking about cats, anything. Like sometimes it's just those conversations, getting to know somebody a little bit more. So, do you have any sort of final words to share before we finish, or anything that we've not spoken about that you think would be important?
Do you know, my mind's gone completely blank, so probably not. That might tell you that perhaps not.
That's cool because we have covered quite a lot. We've talking about that, like removing those barriers for people and not assuming that people have a certain diagnosis or something, and
Yeah,
letting go of those things and allowing people some space. You being very flexible in your approach feels really important for working with individuals, and yeah, just being able to really empower people. And one of
yeah,
the things that you were saying about was that pattern breaking, and how actually we can do that ourselves just with small things, and but then sometimes having somebody to witness that is really powerful. So
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. It's really important to me that people remember that they are individual as well, and they don't have to follow everybody else's would, shoulds, and coulds.
yeah, yeah, and we create so much of that. So
Absolutely.
thank you so much for coming on today, Jan, and thank you everyone for listening. Whether you've been listening as an audio, whether you've been watching this as a video, I really appreciate your time to be here and to be like gaining. Even if in any of these podcasts that there's even just one thing that you notice and pick up, and even better to take action on, then that is fantastic. The work has been done. So thanks for coming, and speak to you soon. Bye bye.
Bye.